Okay, let's meet today's specialist. He's the chairman of the Conservative Political Action Committee, GOPAC. He's a veteran Republican strategist. He coaches state leaders and candidates on how to win in elections, and he specializes in traveling to just about every corner of America. He's eaten a meal and stayed overnight in 48 states. David Avella is here. Fela Avella. And she's a columnist for the Boston Herald. She's also a host for Boston Herald Radio, where she's interviewed big newsmakers like President Donald Trump. She's also modeled for Talbots in the past several years to raise money for the nonprofit Dress for Success, but she specializes in fishing. Adriana Cohen is here. Adriana, I want to start with you on this one. James Clapper not only lied in 2013 to the Senate panel, in 2010, I don't know if you remember this, I distinctly remember watching this interview. James Clapper, as the DNI at the time as well, was being interviewed by Diane Sawyer. And she said, hey, what about these London bombers that were just caught? He had no idea that the London bombers were just caught 3 hours earlier. So here's a guy that we're interviewing him, left-wing media interviewing him as an expert, but the guy's, number one, uninformed, and number two, has lied to us.
That's right. He's lost the confidence of the American people, especially when you highlight, Kat, with the NSA. I mean, before Congress, under oath, he said he denied knowing anything about intelligence surveillance of average civilians, and then we find out through Snowden that's not the case. The government's doing this massive metadata collection. So he's lost the American people's trust there. And then even with Benghazi, he wasn't exactly forthcoming. And so I don't know why these left-wing leaning media outlets continue to have him on, other than to disparage Donald Trump, which is what the left-wing media has been trying to do and has been doing actually quite successfully since he was inaugurated.
And David, he fits right into their narrative. Their narrative is we need a special prosecutor, a special investigator to go ahead and dig deeper into Donald Trump. Meanwhile, where's the crime?
There is no crime. This is why Donald Trump, just a couple nights ago on Judge Jeanine's show, said he may get rid of the weekly or the daily press briefings, because every day it's the media asking the same questions over and over. Right. So, what'd you do about Russia? Mm-hmm. What'd you guys do to cooperate with them on these elections? And then the next week, okay, last week you said you didn't do anything, and you probably didn't do anything, but what if you did do something? Like, should you be brought up on that? It's just the same question.
You can't get rid of the press briefings, though. You wouldn't really get rid of the press briefings.
There are plenty of ways to stay
communicating. Government by the people, for the people. Got to have the press briefings. Got to have the opportunity to ask those questions.
There are plenty of ways for the media to get to ask questions. Look, you just did an interview with Lester Holt last week. You did one with Judge Jeanine. You've done plenty here on Fox. You got Facebook Live. You've got plenty of social media outlets now that, look, people are going to hear from this president.
I wouldn't mind a Donald Trump Facebook Live every now and then.
And I'm in favor of the press briefing as well. But Ebony, Kat points out that everyone would like to see the press briefings continue. A lot of people would. But Krauthammer, one of the smartest guys in the room, anytime you're in the room with him, said on Friday, you know what, we got along without press briefings, televised press briefings, a long time ago. You know? Yeah, and his point was, you can still brief the press, you just don't have to do it on TV every day.
Yeah, that's not the only format. And look, I'm actually not married to them. Quite frankly, I think there are other ways to get this information out, as David's pointing to, and maybe more effective ones. I actually think a lot of these problems that the White House is seeing are of their own creation, Eric. I think they've got a lot of competing narratives. I think they're inefficient messaging coming out of the White House. And maybe to President Trump's point, that can be eradicated, right, if there's a singular messaging going on, one that is more consistent with something that people can understand more plainly, because right now I think that's part of the problem, these dual narratives.
Can I just ask you this? There are so many good things going on in the Trump administration now. The jobs market is firming up. Wages are going up. Stock markets are going up. Home prices are going up. We have consumer confidence on 16-year highs. Yet the only thing the media wants to talk about, every single hand in the press briefing, is what about Russia?
Right. And Eric, you know what? Let me right quick, Kat. That sounds familiar to me. That sounds like the same problem Hillary Clinton's campaign had during the election, and I faulted her campaign, and so I'm actually going to fault the White House in the same time. Take that narrative back. Say, you know what? While everyone else is obsessed with a special prosecutor or what happened to James Comey, I'm talking about the deal I made in China. I'm talking about how I'm going to Israel. You've got to grab hold of the narrative.
If you watch the press briefing, though, Kat, you watch Sean Spicer go out and do 15 minutes on all these accomplishments, where the president's going next, how many things are going well, the different successes he's having in China, and every single question, not one question asks him about that. It's all about the same
Absolutely,
topic.
Which is why I think it could actually help him if he appoints a special prosecutor. That way, that would all go away.
Adriana, your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think I'm not in favor right now of a special prosecutor because, look, we have a House doing an investigation, a Senate doing an investigation, and the FBI. If we don't have, you know, if we don't respect these groups, then we should fix that serious problem. I mean, I think that's enough. Mitch McConnell and Speaker Ryan says this is enough. Let these three bodies do their job.
They say it's, if Paul Ryan says it's enough, then we got to go with Paul Ryan.
Guys, let me do this. Let's take a listen to this. Amid all the hysteria from the Washington elite and media, President Trump getting some surprising support from an unexpected source. Robert Gates, the former defense secretary under Presidents Obama and George W. Bush. Listen to this.
Broadly, philosophically, I am in agreement with his disruptive approach. So in government, I'm a strong believer in the need for reform of government agencies and departments. I also think on the foreign policy side that there is a need for disruption. Now the question is, obviously, in the implementation of disruption.
I will bring it around. David, Gates is a straight shooter. He worked for not only President Obama, a Democrat, he also worked for George W. Bush, an establishment Republican as well. And he's saying he likes this disruptive strategy.
That's why Donald Trump is president, because you had people on the right who wanted disruption, just as you had Bernie Sanders voters who wanted disruption. Mm-hmm. So this desire for disruption is equal amongst those on the left and the right. Let me add one other thing, though, back to our last topic, which is it is so funny that now the media, and even in situations like this, want to focus on an election that is 18 months away, saying, oh, his approval rating is 38%. That means Republicans are going to be destroyed in the next election. They didn't know 18 minutes before the election results what were going to happen. Yeah. And now we have a media that wants to obsess over how Donald Trump's doing right now based off polling numbers that they're coming out with. And that's why Gates' comments are so credential building for President Trump, that he's doing the right thing, that he is the disruptor that Americans ultimately voted for.
Ed?
Disruption, I think, is great. My mother voted for Donald Trump largely on that basis. She wanted to see a mix-up, a change, and she didn't feel confident she would get that from Secretary Clinton. But also to Gates' point, the way it goes about, right, that matters too. And I'm not going to accuse the president of anything. We don't have any evidence of anything at this point. But there are those of us, that are looking to see what that looks like. And I want to talk about the approval rating. Right now, 29% approve of the way Comey was fired. You've got 38% that disapprove. But you know what? 32% are like me. We don't have enough information yet. And that's why, the ACLU coming out and asking for this information through the Freedom of Information Act, I think that will actually do the White House a favor. That will, to Pat Buchanan's point on the program last week, take some of that cloud of suspicion perhaps away.
Right.
Maybe we know more.
Right. Some people are satisfied, some people are sick of it, but some people are saying, hey, if you are as disruptive and you do things in a way that Donald Trump does, there's going to be questions, all right? You would say, why did you fire Comey? Wait so long and then do it all of a sudden while he was in LA, and the reason is you didn't treat Hillary Clinton fair enough when you were smiling and nodding as people were saying lock her up. I mean, people are going to have these questions, and if they're not satisfied, then we should get answer to these questions in order to move on. There's no legislative or executive way to make the minds of Americans stop thinking about something. Okay. And they're still thinking about
things. I agree with you, Kat, but I will also point out, Adriana, that amongst Donald Trump's base support, he's still extremely popular.
Well, of course.
No, but here's the point.
He always will be among his base support, no matter what.
It's what, May 15th of 2017. You have a good 3 years before. Give it 2 years before you have to start really worrying about expanding the base. Right now, he's got to solidify his base, in my opinion.
That's right. There's been polling done recently that said if we could have the election again right now, the majority of Trump supporters would be all in and would vote for him yet again. But, going back to just the rigged media, which is the left-wing media, has been totally unfair to this president. I mean, since day one, they have tried to delegitimize his presidency, and they have floated all this fake news about him from, palace intrigue stories that were never true to the Russian dossier, which was unsubstantiated. I mean, there's so much fake news out there that I feel terribly sorry for his administration, because they're really up against a hostile enemy.
But Adriana, you can't feel that sorry for maybe you do, but for me, I can't feel that sorry for him. Although I agree with everything you just said, but President Trump has been the creator of that type of hostility and questioning of legitimacy for prior presidents, specifically Barack Obama. So when we talk about false facts around the presidents, they're never fair, they're never right. But I think in Donald J. Trump's case, he's got to take it as well as he gave it.
Well, okay,
remember the birth certificate thing?
When Barack Obama was president, there were maybe a handful of media outlets, organizations who would dig into President Obama's everything he said, everything he promised. Here, it's
where
like
he was born.
95%.
That's where he was
print
born.
media. Well, okay, fair enough. But he did walk that back. But here with Donald Trump, it's like, look at that press room.
Oh, no,
It's
they
a
don't like
hostile
him.
press
They,
room.
they don't like him. That's true.
The fight that goes on between the president and the media will continue from now through the end of his administration, as it happens with most presidents. Eric, you have a business background. What's the best way to get customers? Give them what they want. Donald Trump gives people jobs, and he keeps America safe. That's what voters want. And Republicans will have success in 2018, and he'll be reelected in 2020 if we deliver on those two things.
All right, it's a good place to leave it right there. Democrats prepared to take the position of FBI director hostage and play petty politics over the Russia investigation. The new outrageous threat. That's next. Plus, we'll be hearing a